Hello and welcome back to Wonderland Asylum. We're back today, issue 34 of the Hachette Partworks release of Titanic, the ship, the legend. So, what's in the magazine? Well, first of all, a story about a message in a bottle, which appeared in 2017. Was it genuine? Was it not? Who knows? Again, a very, very long article about it. The Gentleman's Club, or the Smoking Room, if you've seen either A Night to Remember or the 1997 James Cameron version, had several shots in the smoking room. However, interestingly, that's actually the smoking room on Olympic, not Titanic. Because when it came to launching Titanic, photography was still in its infancy. It was relatively expensive. So rather than pay to have a whole set of new pictures taken, they basically just reused the Olympics ones. So the colour scheme in the movies is believed to actually be incorrect. It wasn't green and brown. It was actually red leather seats, I'm sure I've seen other people say. But anyway, that's what the smoking room was designed to look like. Oh, the obvious exception being the Café Parisien, which was unique to Titanic, I believe. I'm not sure if Britannic had it. And then that's us onto the parts. And again, lots and lots of little fiddly bits. Because what we're doing essentially in this issue is making the starboard side look like the port side, including building the thrust block. So let's take a look at what's in the box. Okay, so here is today's box, and again, apologies in advance if you can hear the barking. That is, you know, my 12-week-old pup. So what we have: little details, more little details. Some FP screws, more little details. It's all so tiny. But again, you know, is what it is. A lot of EP screws. The thrust block for the starboard side. And again, more little pipes. And then inside, the tissue paper, just as an incidental. I've been keeping the tissue paper so I can use it to put in Christmas presents. Yeah, and there we have again this piece here, and of course the gun, which isn't the gun, and the gantry. So again, it's just a mirror image of what we did on the other side. So let's move everything off to one side. I'll get my glue out. Again, what I do is I make a nice little puddle, because this is not as thin as some other glues that you get. It's not quite as thick as Gorilla's super glue gel. I have used that in the past, but this stuff sets quicker and makes a stronger bond, I find. So what I'll do is I'll get all these parts out of their packets, and I'll come back to you when we're ready to get started. Okie dokie, so that's me. I've identified all the parts, made sure they're all here, and another thing I've done is for the little valves, again, I've turned them red, just to add that little bit more detail and a bit of a difference of colour. Just because there's nothing worse than everything being silver with no detail picked out on it. So, I thought I'd just spied another wee valve, but I haven't. Okay, so what we're doing first is building this, which is the large pump. Now again, what they tell you to do is, and this time they're telling you to put this bit in first. Now it's important to make sure you point it the right way, otherwise it won't fit. So if you look at the detail, there's one side where the edge is squared off and the other side it's rounded. This piece here goes in with the barrel, if you want to call it a barrel, pointing towards the rounded off side. And it goes in like that. Now, yeah, I don't think that's secure enough. It says you may need a little glue, which, you know, often means you do. So again, a little bit of glue in there, and as I say, the barrel points towards the rounded off side. Just making sure it's sitting in nice and straight. It's not a particularly snug fit, just like that. Now again, I am going to deviate from the instructions because it tells you to put these details in, you know, exactly as it says, and then screw them in. Now I'm not going to do that because I don't A, see the need to screw in bits of plastic, and B, if you look at the size of the holes, I think you're just going to end up damaging them. You're going to end up with bits off centre. I'm going to glue them in. And again, so if we take the larger one first, yeah, the larger one goes in this side with the squared off end, and it'll sit just like that. And again, as you can see there, although it is keyed, it does move from side to side. So if you try to screw that, you're going to have a far harder time getting it to line up. So again, as I did with the other side, I'm just gluing it in. This glue is more than strong enough. This bit isn't a high motion or high traffic area, so yeah, I'm more than satisfied that the glue will hold it, and I'm not going to have to start battering screws into it. Again, it goes in just like that. Again, it's your own choice. If you decide you wish to put the screws in, awesome. That's entirely up to you. 'Tis, as they say, your model. This is just my decision. I don't particularly like screwing plastic into plastic. It reminds me of the old Ecto 1 model that Hero Collector published and then never bothered to finish and left people with half-finished models because they're jackasses. Yeah, sorry. I started that with the child, and yeah, it was a lot of screwing little bits of plastic into other little bits of plastic for the suspension. It wasn't a lot of fun. But that is what the pump looks like. So what are we doing next? Ah yes, next we are building the small pipework details for said pipes. The first bit we need is this one here, looking just like that, and to the end of that we are attaching one of the valves. Okay, now again, this valve has 3 pegs coming off of it, if you can see there. What you need to do is make sure that when you, and there's a hole in the end, so this goes into that hole. So what you need to do is make sure that that peg that's about halfway up is pointing away from the rest of the pipes. In fact, nope, I'm talking absolute garbage. The peg in the middle that's kind of halfway along, you can just see it in between my big chubby fingers. There. The peg that's halfway along needs to point down in the same orientation as that peg there. So when you put it on, it needs to sit like that, because that is what connects to the pump. So again, if you put it in the wrong way, well, you're going to have to take it back off again, but worse than that, you risk damaging the part. So again, aim it all up, make sure that bit is pointing where it's supposed to, that the part is on straight, which it will want to fight you, but there we go. Took a wee while longer to set there than it normally does the glue, but that's that all done. And next piece we need is this, almost like a tank design, and it goes on to, is it this? Yep, this pipe here. And again, it goes on, that fits in to the end of the tank just like that. It's a bit of a snugger fit, but not too snug. Again, hold it in until it dries. And make sure that the tank is sitting perpendicular to the pipe. Okay, so I'm going to give those a few moments to dry, and once they've dried, we'll be fitting them into the block itself. So I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so now what we're doing is onto this D-shaped hole on the top of the larger side of the pump, we are going to be attaching, in the only way it will allow, the sort of, I'm going to call it an expansion tank that looks like that. It's going to fit in just here. Again, push it in, make sure it sits straight. Just like that. And then next, we're putting into the middle hole, not the kind of offset one, but the middle one in here. And the pictures this time are slightly better, they weren't great last time around. We are fitting this piece here, and it's that peg I told you that's kind of halfway down the valve piece that slots into that hole just thusly. And it sits just like that. Awesome sauce. Set that down. Fantastic. That's that all been put together. I think there is one more piece possibly that gets put in just shortly, but not at this point in time. At this point, what we're doing is bringing over our floor assembly, like so, and we're going to be attaching this to that point there. Now again, it tells us to screw this one in. Oh no, we're fitting it to that hole just there. Now again, tells us to screw it in. I will determine if I need to when I put it in. Again, have your tweezers ready to manipulate a couple of pipes so they fit into their allotted slots. Main one is this one at the front, needs to fit into that hole there, and it's not awfully happy about it, I must be honest with you. And because it doesn't want to fit in, there we go, that's it now. Perfect. Yeah, because it didn't want to fit in, the rest of the assembly wasn't happy about sitting down properly either. And there is another little point back here that that pipe needs to fit into. And again, it wasn't awfully happy about that either. And that is that all fitted. Now, I don't think I did screw that in last time. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I'll drop the screw in here because the last thing you want is if it pops out then these pipes will come out of the floor, and they're rather difficult to see in, particularly once the rest of the assembly has been screwed down. So I think I need to use 2 more of these to screw down the thrust block itself. So I'll get them out just now too. Get my screwdriver over and I'll screw this piece in. Your problem is finding somewhere to put your finger to stop the screw simply pushing the assembly out. But there we go. That's probably about as tight as you want it anyway. Fantastic. Now the next thing it's telling me to do is, you'll see again, just mirroring this side here, there is a small D-shaped hole which is right there, and in there we are putting this little red valve. Again, let's see, can I do it with my big sausage sized fingers? If I can see, perhaps. Yes. Ah, would have been fine, but my finger got stuck to the wheel. There we go. That's it in. Just check the angle with the tweezers, make sure it's sitting correctly, and there we go. That's what that looks like. Fantastic. Now we're moving this away to the side again. I'm running out of sides to put things. And we are going to be working on the thrust block itself. So again, much like before, the 2 sides marry together quite nicely. Do they need glued? Tell you what, I'm going to glue them purely to ensure the sides actually stick together properly, because that's your main problem, is that although yeah, these 2 bits are okay about going together, it tends to be the ends which split apart and leave a nice gap which doesn't look so good. So yeah, just a little bit of glue on either end. Squeeze it together, and as I say, I apply pressure to the sides, because the centre bit lines up, no bother at all. It's the side bits that you need to make sure aren't going to come to bits on you. Okay, now as before, what we're having to do, it's really nice and doesn't even show you pictures of them doing it this time, which is exceptionally, well, unhelpful. But essentially what we're doing is taking these pipes here, at least I think these are the pipes we're taking. Ooh, that one doesn't look as though there's actually a hole in the end of it at all. That's not going to be good, is it? Ah, that's because it's that end that has the hole in it. I see. Okay, no problem. Yep, so that goes on that side along with this pipe, and this one goes on this side along with this pipe. Fantastic. So let's get this all glued together. Again, so all you're doing, as you can see, there's a very, very small hole. I don't know if you can see. Very small hole in the end of that. And this very small pin goes in that very small hole. And I've just completely held that off camera for you so you couldn't see it. Fantastic. I'll do it better with the second one. These are, again, these are the pipes that go into the thrust block. Okay, so again, there is a small hole in the end of that pipe that I hope you can just about see. And into that is going this very small pin on the end of this pipe. And the orientation is thus. Now you'll be able to see when I move my fingers in just a second. It sits like that. Now I'll need to straighten that up slightly because of course, yeah, there you go. That's how it's supposed to sit. Because these will go into the top, as I mentioned, of the thrust block. So if we take the one I did first. Is that the one I did first? No, that's the one I've just done. Right, I'm going to give these a couple of moments to dry, and then, but no, that one's dry already. So where it's plugging is the long piece is plugging into the side here, just there, and the shorter one is plugging in to this hole just here. So what I find works best is to put the top one in like that and then swing the bottom one round. I've done it the wrong way round. I do heartily apologise. That's not how it's supposed to go at all. I'm not having a very good day today, am I? So what you're actually supposed to do is the long bit goes into the top, like that, and then the pipework swings round into the side here, like that. I'm sure I did that last time as well, actually. Put them in the wrong way. So that's what it should look like, not the silly way I said a moment ago, which is completely wrong. Ignore me. So again, one point goes in there, one point goes in here. Now get it this right this time, honest. The long thin pipe plugs into the top like that, and then swing the assembly round to allow the smaller side pipe to go in there, like so. And it ends up looking like that. Deary deary me. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, made a bit of a mess of that. I do apologise. And then the next thing we're doing is taking this tiny little valve style piece, similar to one we've had before, and it is going not instantly apparent, but what way it goes round. But if you look at the pictures, it's going into this hole here, just in the side. And the way it's going is with the pipe bit facing downwards into what will be the engine room floor, like that. So you can see. So it looks as though once that's fitted, in just a second, it looks like it's connected to the engine room floor. Now again, it's telling me to get out my EP screws, so I'll put one on the screwdriver and I'll see how this sits when I put it down. Again, this one I did screw in last time, purely because if it's not tight enough, this is the kind of thing that will fall off. Yeah, it's not even remotely solid in there, so I will screw this down. But what you want to do is make sure that you push it to as far along as you can while still lining the screw holes up, because if it's too close to one end or the other, what you're going to end up doing is mounting it too far forward and then the engine isn't going to turn very easily. Because you can see there, that is the groove for the engine. So if you've got this too far forward, the engine isn't going to line up against it very well, and you'll end up with your engine struggling to turn. I have heard of people having to sand bits off the end of either the thrust block or the engine itself to get the engine purely to turn. So yep, that's that all fitted and mounted. And the next piece is this bit here, and it goes right in there. Again, there's a keyhole shape, so it will only fit one way, and this bit is snug as a bug, so it does tell you to screw it, and you don't need to. It fits absolutely perfectly without being screwed in. Excellent. Okie dokie. Okay, so the next piece we're fitting is this, again, this long thin piece here, and it has a D-shaped fitting on the bottom, and it goes just there at the front. And I think, if I remember correctly, it doesn't actually sit, if you look at the shape of the pin, it doesn't actually sit 100% straight up and down. And certainly when I test fitted the engines, if it was straight up and down, it wouldn't sit properly. Okay, and the next piece, which is going into that hole there, this one here, is the pressure gauge, which goes right into the front of the engine block when it comes time to mount the block in. And again, that pipe goes very, very close to that detail we've just fitted. And the final piece goes in here, and it looks a little bit like a hammer, if you remember it from previously. For want of a better word, the judge's gavel. It again is a D shape, very, very hard to see, but it is a D shape. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my tweezers to blop it in, just because of the orientation that everything else is in. So do whatever you find easiest to get the part in. I don't particularly like using tweezers because I find you don't have as much control with them. Whereas there, it hit the edge of the hole that it's supposed to go into and didn't quite go in. If you're using your fingers, you can adjust it. But because I'm using tweezers, it's very, very difficult to adjust it, and it doesn't work as well, in my opinion. But if you hear the merry clip clop of claws, it's because my pup has just walked in. Right, you know what? I can't be bothered with this anymore. So it's very, very likely that in just a second, unless I can get this in, the pin's getting snipped off and it's just getting pushed onto the engine room floor where it's supposed to sit. Because I have neither the time nor the inclination to spend fighting with a little hammer shaped thing. Nah, right, that's it. Getting annoyed now. This bit's never going to be seen because it's at the other side anyway, but snap, there you go. Your pin's gone. There we go. That's it where it's supposed to go. Now, as I say, there is a pin that's supposed to help you line it up, but mine, the pin just wasn't for going in the hole. So I ran out of patience, gave it its option, it chose violence. So yeah. And again, the final piece for the thrust block, I know I've said that before, is this again, a little pressure gauge, and it goes into the pump just there, just on top here. Again, it is a D-shaped fitting, so it will only go in the one way, unless you get annoyed with it and cut the pin off, which is always a possibility. There we go. There we are. And that is the pump assembly and the thrust block completed to mirror the other side. Now there isn't much more to do, actually, to be honest with you. We're just fitting a couple more pieces to the engine block. So I'll be back in just a second once I've got the engine block over. Okay, so now we have the engine block. And the first thing we're doing is fitting the gantry onto this side here. So again, I find it better to put the glue into the holes rather than on the pins. Again, you do what works for you. Again, the gantry goes into those 4 holes, and then there are holes on the bottom of the ladders which line up with a floor section. Yeah, that one isn't in, but it is now. It does fit nice and snugly when that's all in. Again, look at that walkway. Imagine you're told, yeah, run up that walkway while the engines are running. Oh, and there we go. That's a perfect example. You can see my engines now aren't wanting to turn. So what I've done is, because I was holding it, I've actually pushed these bits in. So if you push them back, there you go. Now she's turning fantastically. But look how close those pistons are to that walkway. Imagine that was your job. Run up and down that walkway. No thanks. End up like total wipeout, getting wiped off the side. I know I made that joke last time. It's just in case people didn't see that last episode. I felt that my joke deserved to be used again. Okay. And the next piece that we're fitting is the, I think this is the reversing engine. Yep, the reversing engine here. Again, it has a D-shaped fitting. It goes into this hole down here, just there in that indent. The easiest way to tell is those valve type things that don't quite look like valves, they're pointing towards the back. Just like that. Now make sure it's sitting at a 90-degree angle. And that looks like that. And then the next bit we're taking is this part here. That basically is 3 valves hanging down, and then the one stem. It's going into these 2 holes there. Again, on the other side, I had a bit of trouble getting them in. And also, what we're doing is making sure that that wee pipe on the end goes into this wee hole too. So a lot of lining up to do. That's why I would actually, if I'd been doing the 2 issues together, well, that actually fitted a lot more easily than the other side. The other side didn't want to go in at all. And I'll just connect that pipe in, just like that. So that is what the engine block is looking like. And again, it's turning beautifully now. That actually was quite fortuitous. It gave me a wee opportunity to demonstrate what I'd said earlier about those, don't even know what you'd call them, those cylinders being kind of rods. The rod joints, the connecting rods being out of alignment so it wouldn't let the engine turn. Let me show you how that gets fixed. So yeah, that is us for issue 34. Only 2 more issues left at the moment. The next one we're building the gearbox, and yeah, very interesting. Now, you didn't think I wasn't going to show you what it all looks like. Look at that. Absolutely stunning. As I say, we've still a few more bits and pieces to add, but not much. The majority of the engine room is now done. The rest of it's all kind of bigger pipework that goes along here. And then obviously you have the motors and everything that come out the front here. But yeah, that's what that's looking like. Again, that turns really nicely. The first one doesn't turn just as nicely, but it still turns no problem at all. It doesn't snag or anything, it's just a bit tighter against the thrust block. Whereas you can see there's a good millimetre gap there. There is no gap here, it is right up against the thrust block. So yeah, that's what that looks like. How amazing is that? Really, really impressed. It's a shame most of it's going to be hidden when in the final model, but it is what it is. Well, thank you for joining me for issue 34 of the Hachette Partworks release of Titanic, the ship, the legend. What we're doing in part 35, as I mentioned, it's the gearbox. And those rods allow you to actually insert and kind of try the engines to see how they're working and just make sure everything turns. I've already done it by turning the pulleys themselves. But yeah, the gearbox will allow you to actually insert those rods, boom boom, and turn them. So yeah, that's what's coming in issue 35. It's a very quick one, and I don't think issue 36 takes all that much time either, so I might do the 2 of them just as a single thing on Monday for you, because I think I'm going to be busy the rest of the weekend. But yep, just as another little look, that is what the engine room is looking like. And as you can see there, well, I mean, there's plenty of room there for that wheel to turn, but on the other side it is a little bit tighter. I mean, don't get me wrong, mine still turns absolutely beautifully, but yeah, that's what the engines are looking like, and that's the thrust blocks and the valves and everything. Absolutely stunning, in my opinion. Really, really happy with it. You know, I actually said at the beginning that I didn't think I was going to bother to build the engine room. I was just going to go straight on and patch the side, keep the side panel on and not bother myself with it. But I'm really, really glad I changed my mind, because it does look fantastic. But yeah, if you like it, if you think it looks fantastic, leave me a like, drop a comment. Again, shout out to Rod Adams for engaging in the comments as always. Thank you very much, so it's much appreciated. And yeah, awesome. So join me for issue 35 and probably issue 36 shortly, and I should receive the next 4 issues, which will allow us to completely finish the engine assembly and get moved on to something else. What could that be? Anyway, thanks very much guys, and I will see you for the next one, and as always, peace out.